Good morning, everyone. Welcome once more to the Aurum podcast, where we discuss all things that relate to the work environment and the teams that constitute the work environment. Karibuni sana. I'm your host, Anthony Kuria, and with me today I have my co-host and the HR expert, Zipporah Kuria. Welcome, Zippy.
Thank you, Anthony. Good morning.
Yes. Now we were discussing last month. We had a different theme that we were talking about, and this month of May, we have come up with a fresh theme, a theme that we believe in the marketplace is really pertinent because as the country starts opening up, as business starts reopening up, people are rejoining the work. They're rejoining, slowly rejoining the workplace. Those who are working from home, some have found themselves slowly getting back to the workplace, and the dynamics that were there at the beginning of 2020 when this whole situation came to being, things have changed dramatically. And therefore, this month we want to discuss on employee relations. We want to talk a bit more on employee relations because at the end of the day, if you're running a business, you're a manager running your team. Now that things are getting back slowly to the norm, you've got to recalibrate afresh to find, were we still where we were before? Are there things that you have learned? Have your employees changed their perspective? Are they still the same people? Or the lockdowns and working from home has made them to not to be able to relate well with the workplace, with their bosses, with their peers, and all that. So, Zippy, if I could ask you, what is employee relations? Let's start from there.
Thank you, Anthony. Let me first start by saying that as human beings, we are relational beings. And
Yes.
I think relationships don't just happen with friends or with family. When
Mm.
we interact with other people, we must have relations and relations that would work well.
Yes.
And just to talk a little bit about where this all started, employee relations historically was known as industrial relations. And I think a
Mm.
lot of us probably think about industrial relations, but instead of looking at it from an industrial perspective, we are looking at it from a wholesome perspective where we talk about employee relationships. And this concerns basically the contractual engagement, the physical engagement, the emotional engagement of the teams that you actually get to employ at the workplace. And the term employee relations refers to the organization's effort to manage those relationships. That is between the employee and the employer. How do we
Mm.
manage the relationships with our employees? So basically, when we are talking about employee relationships, it's about how we manage those relations with the people that we have engaged. And
Mm.
organizations that you find have put in place good strategies or good plans to engage the employees. You find the relationships that are there are relationships that are thriving. There are relationships that actually help the employees and even the employer to achieve the goals that they have set to achieve. So, from a relational perspective, we must understand that we are relational beings and we have to find ways of being able to have good relationships at the work environment.
Okay, so what you're saying is what used to be called, because because I got employed a few years back. I remember there was that story of industrial relations, and if I'm not wrong, probably even some of our viewers who are listening to us will remember when it came to industrial relations, it was always adversarial, where we have management on one side, we have the employees on the other side, and here our interests are mutually exclusive, and therefore each is looking to gain from the other. It's like lions in Masai Mara having killed something. It's about fighting for the carcass, eating the biggest portion for yourself. So, if I still remain at the employee relations, is the change from industrial to employee a symbol of the shift in the attitude between the employees and the employer?
I would say it's a symbol, yes, of change. But again, these are two terms that we most of the time use them interchangeably because it depends on the industry you're working on. And
Mm,
like you have actually mentioned, before, would hear of industrial relations or industrial actions and all that. And
mm,
it all comes to it all boils down to actually how we manage those relationships, which is
okay.
what we say is employee relations. How do we
Mm,
manage the relationship between the employee and the employer? When you
mm,
engage an employee, the employee is on one side, the management is on the other side. How do you
mhm,
manage this relationship and bridge the gap between the employer and the employee? Because
mhm,
employees most of the time will be on the other side and you are on
mhm,
this other side, but you have to
mhm,
remember there has to be a relationship that would
mhm,
help you coexist as
mm,
a community
mhm,
of the employer and the employee. So how do you
mhm,
manage that relationship? And a lot of times when we don't have very good plans or programs that would help us manage those relationships well, then you find we start having a lot of challenges between these relationships. So, how do we manage
mm,
that relationship? And that is actually the key question we are asking today. How do we
mhm,
ensure we are managing our relationships well with our
mhm.
employees and with the employer so that, again, we are having thriving work environments?
Okay, okay. To our listeners, you are welcome to send your comments. I'm sure, as you know, we are live on Facebook. You are welcome to send your comments. You have a question that you'd like to understand better, a clarification. Feel free to post your comments. We will look at them and we will highlight them even as we continue discussing. Now, now the second question that comes into my mind is, what are the advantages of employee relations managed well?
I think there are very many advantages of managing relationships well.
Mm,
And like I've said, look at any other relationship. Look at
mhm,
the family relationships. Look at the friend relationships. If you manage any relationship well, there are very good advantages. And the same
mhm,
can be applied at the work environment. When the relationships are managed well, one, the productivity of that organization will go high
mhm,
because employees feel valued. The employer
mm,
is seeing the value the employee is putting at the workplace. So when the
mhm,
relationship is managed well, there will be business, the business will thrive. The other thing is that employees will be motivated. No one
mhm,
wants to work in an environment where they feel there's a lot of push and pull. They are not
mhm,
feeling that they belong or they're appreciated by their colleagues. So when the relationships are actually working well, you find employees are actually motivated. You
mhm,
also find there's an harmonious working atmosphere where there's harmony, there is peace. I always say employees spend a lot of time in the office. Now, no
sure.
one wants to spend a lot of time in a place where there's no harmony, there's no peace. You want to be full of joy even as you're working.
Mm,
And how do you derive that if there's no an atmosphere that would actually cultivate that? The other thing is improved communication. If the employee relations are good, then you will find this improved communication
mm,
between
true.
the managers and their team members, between co-workers. And I'm sure from experience, there are times you have worked with colleagues who, there's no good communication, there's conflict,
Mhm,
there are issues. And these
mm,
issues actually take away good employee relations, and you start realizing there are challenges in this working environment because people are not working in harmony. People are not working together,
mhm,
towards a common goal, knowing that, we need to work around our differences. We need to understand each other. I have my
mm,
weaknesses, I have my strengths. How do we complement each other? How do we
mm,
make sure this relationship we have as co-workers and as employer employees is a relationship that creates an atmosphere that actually helps the organization move forward? When you find the relations are managed well, you find you have happy employees. I'm not so sure whether you've seen a situation where you work in a department and people are working, and in the middle of it, there's a joke that is passed and there's laughter and they're enjoying that environment.
yes, that is
Why?
true.
Because the relations in that place are actually being managed in a way that employees feel this is a good atmosphere that we are in, and it's an atmosphere that is fostering, harmony, fostering peace, fostering togetherness and teamwork.
So what we are saying here is that the advantages of employee good, well managed employee relations is not just emotions and good feeling and all those. As much as that is important, it's also an atmosphere where the employees feel that their concerns are taken care of, that what they signed for is what is being offered by the employer, and they're given the space to be able, they have the necessary autonomy to carry out their tasks. Yet they know they have also a supervision that everything is aligned in one way going forward. And on the other side, for the employer, the manager, the entrepreneur, he or she knows that I have a team that is motivated, that comes on time, that does its job well, that goes out of its way to meet the necessary targets and goals, that is flexible, that is innovative, that yes, it's innovative. It thinks for itself. It works out whatever it needs to be done. Basically, uh, an environment that is competitive yet friendly. And if
Yeah.
I may ask this, just on the same, then it means to create a well-managed employee relation platform, it is not automatic. It has to be deliberately worked on. Is that correct?
You have to deliberately work on it, and this is not just the employer but also the employee.
Sure.
um, all of us have to be willing to foster a good community where we are all working in.
Mm,
Employee relations is not a one-man show. It's not just the employer who is managing. It's also about the employee. How are you
mhm,
behaving when you're at the workplace? How are you dealing with your colleagues? We've talked about communication. Are you communicating with your colleagues? Are you being
mm,
respectful? Are you abiding to the laws that have been put in place by your employer? Now, when it comes to communication, you've seen situations where you're not talking to your colleague, yet you have to work together. And you find in
mhm,
such situations, actually work suffer because none of you wants to be seen like, I'm the one who is giving in to this,
mm,
standoff. And we
mhm,
have to be in that place that we are working harmoniously, not with the conflicts.
mhm,
Again, from an employer perspective, we need to make sure we put in place mechanisms to make sure we manage conflicts. Because where there are relationships, conflicts will happen. And when
mm,
those conflicts happen, then how are we going to manage these conflicts so that, again, it doesn't kill the employee morale? Again, job satisfaction is going to come in when employees are feeling, there are
mm,
good relations here. I'm treated well by my colleagues. My colleagues respect me. My
mm,
colleagues work together as a team. We are not pulling each other down, but we are working together for a common goal. A lot of us employees, we want to pull each other down, or we want to do something that will make the other person to be seen, they are not doing
mm,
well, when
mm,
we know for sure they're putting every effort to do well. So when we bring our efforts together and we
mm.
work having good relations together as team members, then you will find we actually create an environment that is thriving. So it's very important for us to realize this is not just a work of the employer, but the employee has a greater responsibility when it comes to these relationships.
Now, which now brings me to the third question that I had in mind. What are the downsides of poor employee relations?
Again, like there are benefits of good employee relations. When the employee relations are not managed well, there are challenges that would actually come. And one would be you will have disengaged employees. When the
Mhm,
relationships are not managed, employees will be there to work for the money. They are not engaged.
mhm,
And that is a serious challenge to any business. You will find the productivity would actually go down tremendously if, again, your
mhm,
employees are not engaged. The other downside of it, if there are no good relations in the work environment, you'll find there's lack of teamwork. Everyone wants
mhm,
to be a loner. I want to be seen, I am performing, but I don't want to work with so and so because
mhm,
I'm feeling probably they're going to drag me down, or they don't know what they're doing, or whatever reasons we might have to make us
mhm,
want to just work as loners. It kills the team spirit. The other thing
mhm,
is you end up having demotivated employees. No one
mhm,
wants to work in an environment where everyone is just doing their own thing and we are pulling each other down, or we are pushing each other around. We want to work in an environment where we are all feeling is fostering unity. The
mhm,
other downside of it, You could have, employees again, having industrial actions, and we've seen this a lot, and especially when it comes even like to the government institutions where you find, this, industrial actions. And where does this come from? It comes from probably employee relations not being managed well. The challenges that come with it. If issues are coming up and they're not being addressed properly, and there's no proper communication, then you find one thing leads to another. The other thing, of course, you find is you will find again employees are detached. They are there, but they are not there. And again, no employer wants to have employees who are completely detached actually from the business. You want employees who are attached, employees who understand what it is you're trying to achieve and what you're doing as an organization and where you're going and where they fit into the whole equation. So again, it's a big thing not to have you know the downside of it. You want to make sure you are having good relationships happening at the work environment. Of course, we have challenges sometimes that lead to litigations. Again, if employee relations are managed not in the proper way. And again, I'm sure we'll discuss this as we go along, where you find because this relationship was not managed properly, then it ended up becoming a litigation, which should not have been there in the first place.
So here, what we are saying is we are not mollycoddling. We're treating employees like babies. You're not when you go to the work environment. You're not in a spa sauna where you're treated like yeah. No, the issue is you've come to work. The employer is expecting something from you. The environment at the workplace might be very fast paced. It might be very demanding. It might even involve shouting and people in it, but people are flowing, people understand, they are mentally engaged, knowing this is where we are going. I mean, because there are certain environments that are like that. If you're working in dangerous, there are people who, because of the nature of their work, it's dangerous, it's fast paced. If you blink, you have been passed by the opportunity, so everything has to move very fast. So what we are trying to say here on the advantages of good well managed relations, or on the side of on the side of poor relations, the issue is not uh, so much how you're treated sweetly and nicely. No, we are saying irrespective of the work environment, there is a clear understanding. This is how we work. These are your rights and responsibilities as an employee. These are the expectations of the employer. So as long as everybody is in line and we understand what are the benefits, what are the risks, all that, then once that is understood, then irrespective of how slack or competitive the workplace is, we can have good employee relations and we can have poor employee relations. It all depends with how the two teams work together. Am I right in that assumption?
You are very right.
Yeah, because I'm trying to imagine uh, people who have never been in a newsroom, but the stories I hear, newsrooms for newspapers, and things are fast paced. There is no time for bembelezing people. I worked in a banking environment where also it is we are dealing with figures here, figures that are very huge. So everybody has to be very alert from the top money to the bottom. So it's not bembelezing you, telling you what to do. You need to know what to do. However, irrespective of how slow or fast the environment is, you can have good employee relations where everybody knows this is the direction we are going. Even if my boss shouts at me, even if they are very harsh with me, we know this is where you're going. And there are benefits that come for us pulling together and going the same way, monetary or non monetary. Now, when we go now to the question of what is the role of HR in employee relationship management? What's your take?
Let me say the HR is a glue that brings together the organization together. Um, when we talk about HR, HR is in the center, is they're the center of focus. They are in between the employer and the employees. So anything that happens in terms of managing these relationships, the HR needs to be, steering this vehicle and ensuring that, employee relations are happening in a good way in the organization they're working in. And one of the things I would say would be HRs need to build cross-functional teams where teams are able to come together, whether they're from different departments, and they're able to work together as a team and collaborate and make sure whatever goals they're looking at achieving is achieved. So when you bring in these teams together, you find they're working in an environment where it's not about me, I only work in finance. You can get to know what are the people in customer service having to go through to achieve this
Yes.
common goal we are trying to achieve. So it's important for us, number one, to look at building cross-functional teams. The other thing is encourage social interactions. I always would say it's not just about work all the time. It's important for us to also create an environment where, we can take a moment and celebrate a birthday, for example. We can take a moment and go out for lunch as a team and get to interact outside the so busy working environment where there are so many, challenges and pressure that is coming in. And this helps us actually get to know each other better. Interestingly, and I've realized this, and I'm not so sure that this is just men alone, but I've realized when people gather around food and they are sharing a meal and they are talking, you get to actually understand people a little bit better. So it's important for us to create those opportunities for us to be able to share those light moments together, be able to share those social interactions together. The other thing is building environments where we can be able to do team buildings, where teams can be able to come together, where if I'm working in a production department or I'm working in a customer service department, I have to understand what this person actually has to go through to get the work done. I have to understand what it means actually to be a team player. And for me to understand if I drop the ball here, this is what happens. So creating those kind of environments actually makes us also understand what are the strengths of this person, what are their weaknesses, what are the challenges, what is it that I can do better to be able to be a better team player. So again, creating those environments is very important. Again, it's equipping the teams, and especially in terms of communication. Right now, we are in the era where we are now having teams working from home, some teams working in the office. You're having teams in very, very different places, and yet you expect them to perform. Again, how do we ensure we equip them for communication? How do we ensure we create channels that would foster good communication between teams? And this would actually help us make sure that employee relations are managed well. Sometimes employee relation challenges come in because there's a misunderstanding somewhere. There's a miscommunication somewhere. There were some expectations that were supposed to be, achieved, but they were not achieved because the person who was supposed to do this did not probably understand and the communication was not very clear. And this brings in about a conflict. So again, if communication is not managed well and we don't have channels of resolving these conflicts, then we find ourselves having to manage a lot of challenges in the work environment. So actually talking about employee relationship management is not difficult, but it becomes difficult if we don't manage those relationships well. When we are having to deal with people from diverse cultural backgrounds, with people from different points of view, with people from different, age groups, sometimes it can be a challenge. But the question is, how do we make sure we bring everyone together and make sure we are all speaking the same language? Make sure we are creating a work environment that, everyone feels important, everyone feels respected, everyone feels wanted, everyone feels I am contributing something towards this goal that we are all working towards to achieve.
Yeah, that is very interesting. The way you've said that HR is the glue that keeps employee relations together, management, and and other stuff. You've made me remember. It has just occurred to me that terminologies have changed. It used to be called personnel management, and personnel management and industrial relations. That is the language. When I entered the workforce in the 90s, that was the language. I went to the personnel department. They're the ones who interviewed me, and they interviewed me. They decided I'm good, and I was hired where I was hired, and I was placed in one of the departments, one of the branches there. And I very soon after I was confirmed, another guy came to me and told me, we have a union here, and from time to time we have industrial relations with the employer, and there was a clear demarcation between those who were unionized and were considered personnel, and then those immediately you raise a certain grade, you become management, you leave the union, you become management. So it became industrial relations. Now the terminology has shifted. Instead of personnel management, it is now human resources. And instead of industrial relations, it is now employee relations. And I think from your explanation and to our listeners, it is more than just semantics, it is more than just wordplay. There is a clear understanding that personnel, before when it was personnel management, you and a computer and a machine and whoever were classified as one. Your resources, what we do, when you're doing basic economics, there's something called factors of production. You as a worker, your computer, the steamer, the what, you are factor of production, and your boss is the one who is controlling everything. That idea hasn't changed, but now understanding that employees can be part of the solutions. That they are not just points on a board to be moved around. That things can be done a bit more differently, and the fact that it's no longer industrial relations, it is employee relations. And as you've said, the HR function also has changed. Where before I remember the personnel department, they were part of management. They were whatever the management wanted could be done through them. But now when it becomes HR, it is more of understanding that these are people, there are laws and regulations that go with them, and harnessed well, they can also come with brilliant ideas to bring the harmonious whole coming together. And now, as you say, HR department now becomes the glue that makes this whole transition from industrial to employee relations to work well. Now, as we come to a close, uh, do you think there what could employees do? You're motivated, you've come to work, you're ready to engage, you're ready to make it work. Just give us very briefly one or two hints that a well motivated, driven employee can do to make in employee relations work.
Let me start by saying, Anthony, that it's in the finer details. It's in the
Mm,
small details
yes.
where, as an employee, I have a challenge.
Hmm.
I'm experiencing this challenge in making my work done. How do I manage that? Do I keep quiet about it and
Hmm.
complain, or do I make an effort to get this addressed? Because I
Hmm.
have realized those small issues actually are the issues that become bigger issues when they
Hmm.
go unaddressed. So I would say it's important for us, number one, to understand the smaller details needs to be taken care of.
Hmm.
If you are a manager and an employee has brought an issue to you, don't don't sweep it under the carpet.
Hmm.
Don't leave it unresolved. Find
Yes.
a way to resolve that issue and give that employee feedback. I have realized feedback is very critical when it comes to employee relationship management. Because if I come to you, I have this issue, you tell me you will look at it, then you look at it and you keep quiet, you don't get back to me. As an employee, my assumption would be you have ignored me. And tomorrow
Hmm.
I will have another issue. I will bring it to you. You still say, I'm looking at it. You still don't give me feedback. And it becomes a trend. And what happens? I start having these feelings of
Hmm.
I'm not happy being there. I start having this notion of, this management doesn't care about us. So it's important for us to realize the small issues are very important to be resolved and employees given feedback. Now, on the other hand, if you are the employee and you are having challenges, don't sit back and say, I will not raise these issues. you need to foster that communication between yourself and your supervisor, because it's very critical. Because once you foster that communication, then it opens up a door for us to be able to resolve any challenges that would come up. We have to remember there's no work environment that is perfect. Every work environment has its challenges. Every work environment,
Yes.
will have issues coming up. It's about how we manage these issues that are coming up on a day-to-day basis that actually makes all the difference. So again, if I was to respond to your questions, what can employees do? I think there's a lot they
Yes.
can do. Number
Mm-hmm.
one, I think it's important to also make the decision. I'm not going to be a troublemaker. I am going to be a team
Uh-huh.
player. I'm going to work in harmony with my colleagues. I'm not going to be the kind of an employee who is trying to pull everyone down. I'm going to
Yes.
see what is this that I can do to actually contribute to the teamwork and make the team actually look good. It's not just about one person. It's about my contribution, because I need to ask myself the question: why did I look for this job in the first place? Why am
True.
I working here in the first place? What is
Mm-hmm.
my contribution today? Is it about just the salary I'm getting, or is there something I am giving back? I can proudly say this was my contribution, and I'm very proud of the contribution I made to this organization. So it's very
Mm-hmm.
critical for us to think about what we can do as employees, making
Mm-hmm.
sure we are fostering good relations at the work environment.
Wow, 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 wow. Thank you for that. You've really nailed it at the nail, hit the nail on the head. That both employers and employees have a place to play in employee management, in making sure that these things work, that a good attitude is where you begin from. Now we've come to the end of our podcast for today. We are really happy that you are able to log in and listen to this. And we will be talking more and more this month on employee relations. We'll get experts to discuss more, on both HR experts and people who are employers, who from their perspective, we hear what exactly do they look for. If you'd like to know more about us, you can you can look at the chat below. You can get in touch with us through Facebook, through LinkedIn, and through YouTube. You can follow us on the same, and you can get in touch with us also through our telephone number and emails that are at the bottom of your screen. We are really happy that you're able to log in. My name is Anthony Kuria. Today, as we've discussed about employee relations, we will continue with this theme this coming, this coming few weekends. So we thank you for logging in. We look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you, and God bless you.